right. We have being live streamed. Good morning and welcome everybody to our live stream for the Aware Meditation during Mental Health Awareness Month. We are going to be doing this for 30 minutes and we have two fabulous guests and we're talking about anxiety. Anxiety is the main focal attention for this year's mental health awareness. And our guests, we have Emily Fabry, who is a mindfulness facilitator and educator. And we also have Rosa Perdomo, who is a podcaster with The Feels with a focus on mental health. So ladies, both give me a little wave that you're there.
Hello.
All right. So first question that I'd like to ask Emily is, tell me, why is a mental health so important to you?
Mm-hmm. Mental health is super important to me because growing up, I struggled. I saw, myself being set back in certain ways, even from a young age. Little things that would, like being late, something like being late would give me that tense feeling in my chest. And that was a feeling like, even at 10 years old, I knew, you can't really live life on the edge like that. There's no way that everybody's just living like this. And as I got older, I wasn't as mindful about my surroundings, about my mental health, what I was consuming. And as I slowly began to make those shifts, I noticed so many changes in my life. And when I noticed some small changes, that's when I really knew that this was where the good stuff is at.
And how old were you when you started to become aware of the terminology anxiety?
I was pretty aware with what anxiety truly was by the age of 13. I, at a young age, was diagnosed with ADHD as well as depression, anxiety, the works. I had gone through therapy. I had expressed, growing up, I was one of those kids that acted out in a way, but that was more so anxieties of other things happening, causing me to act in ways that wasn't my full intentions, but just those fears and those traumas were pushing forward. So by the age of 13, I had already been in therapy and been fully aware that anxiety is a real thing, mental health is a real thing, and, had understood fully what it is and that it is not something everybody experiences the same.
And Rosa, when did you first become aware of anxiety and why is this an important topic for you?
So I as well, it was around 13 where I started experiencing my anxiety. And for me, it was going downstairs to go to school, like going outside. It was a fear. And I didn't understand it at first. I was scared, I felt different. I just felt like I couldn't relate, like nobody could relate to me because I didn't understand what it was. And as well, to add on, the chest pains were horrible. And I was like, I didn't understand that anxiety can also cause physical pain. So for me, it was definitely 13 and just going through a lot. I was born in the Dominican Republic, born and raised in the Dominican Republic, came here at 5. So it's a lot of transition, and I feel like getting to know yourself and actually sitting down with your fears and understanding why you can be like scared or what is stopping you really has helped me. I feel like diving into yourself and figuring out what it is that's causing your anxiety. It's a very long journey, but it's worth it when you take it.
I like that you touched on the physical aspect. So we just want to remind everyone here, we are 3 entrepreneurs in the wellness field. We are not certified psychiatrists. We are here representing with Aware Meditation, ways to approach your mental health that are not necessarily prescribed by medication. And if you ever feel that you are having any issues, please go and consult a registered physician. The format of anxiety that we're going to talk about here is that anxiety comes from within. There is stress that happens on the outside, and our response from within is what we're dealing with anxiety. And anxiety has these physical elements to it. I'm glad that you had brought this up. The feeling on the chest, right? The physical feeling, that the anxiety goes into what we call the fight or flight response. So we feel when there is an anxiety attack, a panic attack is a form of anxiety, that we are in fight or flight, we are being attacked. And what that means is that the heart actually starts to pump a little bit faster. It comes from the premise that we are being chased by an animal, right? And so if the heart pumps faster, we want the blood to go around faster so we can run, we can get out of there as quickly as possible. What also occurs is there can be this tunnel vision. There can absolutely, the periphery vision disappears and there's a focused tunnel vision. The idea being that we would run as quickly as we could. There is the phenomenon of the evacuation of the bowels. We can get that in a smaller form, the butterflies in the stomach, as it were, right? And that is so that we evacuate any heavy load, right? So the body also becomes tense. The muscles get tighter if we can have an anxiety. Oh my gosh, when we're undergoing anxiety attacks. And we also can find the shortness of breath, right? We're having a hard time breathing. You can have perspiration. It can cause the mind to not be able to function where you are, and paralyzation. Literally, one could be paralyzed with where they are. So although it's considered mental health, and mental health awareness in May of this year is focusing on anxiety, there are physical responses because we are in a fight or flight state when we're at the effect of anxiety. Now, not everybody who has anxiety is experiencing these particular physical responses straight away. However, they are then running this fight or flight response in life. So whether it's anxiety to get out of the house, right? Whether it's anxiety to answer a text, right? What's happening is it's now having a physical manifestation and it's continuing. And when we continue in a fight or flight response for a sustained period of time, then you start to develop a habit. And when you have a habit, you've now formed what's considered normal. And what now becomes the challenge is moving out of that state of consciousness, from that fight or flight to the relaxation state. Because if we move from something that now is considered normal with high adrenals, right, at that fight or flight, when we move back or take a modality to come out of normal, that is now considered the fight or flight response. So we have ourselves in what we call a cycle. And this is partly with anyone who went through COVID and lockdowns, and people I'm talking to are in New York, and New York was severely hit with lockdowns compared to many places in the United States with COVID. And that was over a sustained period of time that there is going to be anxiety. And when that now is in the system as normal, it's very hard to get the system to go out of that response. Modalities, or as Rosa had talked about, doing the work, and we'll get to that in a section, can help break that particular pattern. And when we have a pattern that has to be broken from the inside, there has to be a desire from that individual to want to change that, so that the doors are open to experience potential anxiety and relieving anxiety, as it were. So with this moment, I'm going to ask you, Rosa, tell me what you did in regards to the work.
So for me, it took quite some time. I started out journaling. I always loved to write, and I felt like that was an escape for me. So even if the story just wasn't making sense to me, I would just like put my feelings out on paper. And I feel like that was a huge step for me for healing. Also, I learned meditation. And when I got introduced to meditation, it changed my life, I feel. And it took time as well. So it's not really easy just to sit, close your eyes and like, you know what I mean? Just not think about anything. Very hard to do, especially with anxiety, because you have so many thoughts running through your brain. So, and, overthinking and all that. So I did go to classes, and I feel like it helped. It was for my, honestly, health is wealth. And I feel like your mental state is part of that. So definitely journaling and my podcast. One of the main things that helped me was my podcast, saying my issues out loud and expressing how I feel and just letting it out was not only, I feel, therapy for me, but it also helped others along the way. So
those are
that would
excellent
be
points that you bring up. The journaling, there has been proven when you put something on paper from the brain and you write it down, there is a release that occurs. And also when you talk about having your podcast, now we're going to get a bit closer to that on about what it means when you stand up and you actually speak your truth, right? The channel here, YouTube, it's called YouTube for a reason. It was about you on the tube, as it were, right? From the idea of the television was the cathode ray tube, sorry. And people often were getting on there just talking about their journey, depression, early on in YouTube, and became these huge influencers, simply expressing their truth. What we have as an outreach program for Aware Meditation is Rise Up Comedy, and Rise Up Comedy has classes on Zoom, ideally for people who are business individuals, got nothing to want to perform at all, and go through 4 sessions or 5 sessions, depending on the program that's taken, and absolutely learn to then perform their truth and talk about maybe any trauma that happened that they're in a place to discuss. The last performance we had in Los Angeles, we had an individual who was like yourself, an immigrant from another country, and talked about how their parents took them back home and what happened there and how they felt different. And we also had a recovered addict who talked about their experiences, but with humor, and the healing that occurred from expressing themselves in front of people. And we provide a very safe environment. We're now documenting that not only does anxiety get relief when you may be laughing, right? Because when we laugh, our endorphins are raised, and we also go from the fight or flight response automatically, but standing up there and speaking your truth. Okay? Yeah. The podcast market is flooded, but the big reason for that, I believe, is because people are having a place where they want to speak their truth and be heard by like-minded individuals. Now, Emily, tell me a little bit more about the modalities that you've had to help you with anxiety.
For me, yes, it was writing things down. It was all of that. But for me, truly, it was being introduced to a true beginner-friendly yoga environment, learning what gentle movement does for your body. We talk about, having issues getting out of the house. Well, I would have that anxiety in the morning where it would take me 2 hours to get out of bed without feeling to feel myself. And I learned what bed yoga was, that you can move your body in a mindful manner from bed before you even get out, and kind of even get a workout in there. And I was like, let me try this, let's see what this is about. And incorporating gentle movement, core things like sitting in a butterfly pose where our feet are touching and our backs are against the wall, learning how to ground myself, not only at home in bed to prepare myself for my day, but while I'm out. I live in Brooklyn, so we're in New York City. It gets crazy sometimes. Learning, yoga and breathing techniques that you can do on the train, that you can do while you're walking down the street, while you're at a busy restaurant or in a crowded area, where you are able to bring yourself back and take those steps back. Just doing the breath work and the yoga really has changed everything about my anxiety, because anxiety doesn't fully go away. Anxiety is always, has the possibility to be there. The work is never done. We always need to continue that work. But by continuing that work with gentle practices like journaling, gentle stretches from bed that are pretty much anybody can do has really made those big shifts in for me personally.
Beautiful, thank you. And for those of you who are maybe distracted by my head bobbling, I was just checking out the chat here. And if you are live streaming right now and you have any questions, please put them in there. We're now going to talk about, we have the highlight here. This particular live stream is New York. And New York is a very crowded, energetic 24/7 city. What do you do, Emily, to help you? You're in the middle of, I was going to say the middle of the street, and that's just not the right thing to come out of my mouth first thing in the morning here. I'm in Los Angeles, so it's, it's just gone 7 a.m. On a Saturday. What do? You're walking across from the subway. It's crowded, it's rush hour, and you just get a text and you have realized you have to now get where you're going faster. You have these messages that didn't come through. We say this as we're at the end of Mercury in retrograde. Let's talk about this scenario. What would you do? What do you do like in a moment like that to help with anxiety?
So truthfully, I will put my phone on do not disturb for 5 moments to collect myself. When we get that oh dang text message, we have to put a little extra pep in our step. There's nothing better we can do for ourselves than just to stop for a moment. We have to take that pause, close your eyes, hold your phone tight, make sure we're not near the edge of the subway, but take that moment and just take that deep breath in. Hold it for a second and then take a deep breath out. And as silly as it may seem, taking 3 to 5 deep breaths, then reevaluating my situation, because at the end of the day, there is nothing we can do but exist and be us. The world will not end, even though in that moment we see that text and the world is ending, we must be there at time. The world is not going to end. We have to understand that we are such a small piece of so much that is happening around us, but also such a big piece of everything at the same time, that take those 2 feet, plant them flat in the ground, and allow myself as a tree, those roots to plant within the ground, and just to hold myself tall and remind myself that I am capable of doing what I need to do. Whether it be getting somewhere a few minutes early or, preparing for a big speech, whatever the case may be, a big project for work, but reminding myself I am capable. Just plant that tree, plant our roots.
The breathing element that you talk about is imperative, and there's going to be an event on May 21st at St. Mark's Comedy Club in the East Village area, which has comedy and wellness, and I'm actually going to be taking people through a breathing practice of how to ground yourself in that moment. Breathing will move us from that fight or flight response automatically, right? And how we take that one moment to take a breath can shift everything. And what about you, Rosa? What do? You're in New York City. You're in Brooklyn. Okay, let's talk about Brooklyn. You're in Brooklyn. And I don't know, some of the bougie peeps are always walking in front of you with their children, taking their time, and you have to be somewhere.
So usually, I'm not gonna lie, before, right, I would be very impatient. When somebody's walking really slow, you got to get to work, you got to get to where you're going. Honestly, just tell yourself, what is me getting upset at this situation? What is that going to do? It's not going to change the situation. And that to me has really helped. Also, the breathing is very important. I think like it does something to your body where it just automatically calms you down. So taking deep breaths and also thinking that it's not going to make a difference if you're upset. Controlling your emotions is a huge one for me. So I feel like New York is big, it's loud, it can be very frustrating, but we are the only ones that have the power to control our emotions. We can't control what goes around us, but we can control how we react to it. So definitely taking charge of your emotions, understanding that things happen and they're gonna happen. It's just how do you take it? How do you see it?
Perfect. So we have there are, aware meditation. You can see the ebook, which is Vedic meditation stories of people who've had severe issues with anxiety, and how the practice that we teach, you regularly go from fight or flight to the relaxation state by doing a regular practice of meditation that's comfortable. The body is comfortable and feels safe. We also are here together because on the 21st is an event where we are bringing in laughter. And laughter, when there is a belly laugh, is a response that brings the body from the fight or flight to the relaxation state. And we are, I'm going to just, of course, it's now doing not what I want. Laugh is a response that brings the body from the fight or, there we go there. That's not what I wanted to share at all. This is our live stream here. I am just going to go back. I'm going to ignore myself for the moment. I just just ignore myself for the moment. That's apparently what I need to call myself. Sorry. So let me just get back to the screens are being what they are. Oh my goodness. I just cannot even right now. So the reason why I'm doing all of this silliness right now is to share with you all who are live about this event that's happening in New York on the 21st of May at the St. Mark's Comedy Club, which is in the Village. There is a show, it's called Elevated Mayhem. Elevated, why? We raise our consciousness. Mayhem being talking about the mayhem that goes on in the brain, right? We have comedians specially focused to talk about, I get the blob out of the way, to talk about mental health and their challenges. It is produced by Luz Michelle, who is there of Hard-Headed Comedy, Aware Meditation and Rise Up Comedy, and that's me, Ms. Paula J. Newman. We have Alice Chan, who is known as the Mommy Comic New York City, who has created this beautiful video, which is now available on our Instagram, which is Rise Up Comedy, of how a mom tries to meditate. You will die laughing if you watch that. We have Luso, who is a Colorado Springs mom, and she is also going to be talking about the stresses of being a mom, and she is a meditator that I personally have taught. Alex Carabano, who is the owner of the club and a big advocate of mental health awareness, is performing, but also has donated. We are having, it's a mini fundraiser as well to go towards the nonprofit to be able to bring comedy, wellness, meditation, now as we're coming out of COVID, to centers, to places where they're not able to get out. And we have Ralph Anthony, another comic who is known and has mental health jokes up the wazoo. So if you want to come along, you can check this out. It's on Eventbrite, Elevated Mayhem Comedy Mental Health Awareness Show. That's on the 21st of May. It's in the East Village area. And if you are having problems financially, you want to come, you can just hit up Aware Meditation, info@awaremeditation.com, because we may want some support to be there. We don't want anything to be stressful or have anxiety. One of the things I talk about with meditation is let's not have anxiety about learning meditation. All right, let's understand that we are breaking the mold. We're breaking the mold to stop and breathe, as it were, right? Like if we're going to stop and breathe, that's a habit we have to now create. Oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I'm going to talk about more during the event of the cycling thoughts in the brain. Why do they keep cycling? Why do the same thoughts keep coming over and over again? Well, the answer to that will be at the event on the 21st. That's happening. I'm going to put a link there in the chat for you. These beautiful female entrepreneurs, please keep your eyes on them in New York. They are going to be doing even bigger things than they are right now. And with that, I'm going to thank you for joining us for this brief live stream about anxiety, different realms to approach it. And if you happen to want to have an opportunity to speak your truth, reach out to us. For Rise Up Comedy has the classes on Zoom, where it's taught in a very effective, it's different. The program is different and the results are in. We had our first person who was not a comic, has some learning challenges, do their set, and people who know club owners were so impressed that they want to give them stage time at major clubs after only 4 sessions with me. That's what happens when you have a spiritual teacher who's a performer, who also has tapped into their destiny, is able to do great things. Am I bragging? I think I need some coffee to bring me down right now. I want to thank Emily and Rosa for being on here, these beautiful ladies. If you want to see more of them, you can absolutely show up to the event on the 21st. That's what I'm going to tell you first of all. And if not, then why don't you put a note in the chat? You can always email info@awaremeditation or riseupcomedy@awaremeditation.com. And those of you who are of worthiness, I will pass on their information to you. But you can check out Rosa on the Feels podcast, and Emily has her own yoga brand. Is there anything you ladies would like to close out with for a message?
I guess the biggest thing is just want to touch on, same thing with my practices, with my meditation and yoga practices. Creating that, we all need to facilitate to keep bringing these things to the community. But if you see me, you know me in New York, I am all over different aspects within different communities. If you cannot afford something, please reach out to me. If you ever see me, you're following me. I don't want to exclude anybody. We may be able to we'll always be able to work something out to make sure you can attend classes and have access to things that are life-changing and that everybody should have some sort of access to be able to learn those skills and habits to then create those things for themselves. That's it. But thank you for having me as well.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful way to end it. And Rosa, is there anything you would like to follow up with?
I would just like to say that this is amazing. I feel like what we're doing for the community and like talking about something that's so important, like anxiety, brings us all together. We're not all alone. We're all in this together. We're all struggling in some type of way. And if we connect like we're doing now, it'll only make it better and it'll only make us stronger. So let's just keep this up and see where we go.
Great. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you all on the